So whether it was the score clock or the Alabama defense that prevented Georgia and Notre Dame from playing a couple of years ago, those two schools will make sure that they will play in 2017 and 2019. Mark Rogers TV on the agreement between the University of Notre Dame and University of Georgia to play a home-and-home series in 2017 in South Bend, and then a couple of years later, 2019 in Athens. Notre Dame last played an SEC team, of course, when they could have played Georgia, but the Bulldogs stopped 4 yards shy of the SEC championship and BCS national title game berth, and Alabama stomped out Notre Dame 42-14. The last time before that for Notre Dame was not pretty either. So the last two times out against the SEC in bowl play, not good for the Irish. They got stomped by LSU in the second half, 41-14. A competitive game into the third quarter. Brady Quinn and the Irish actually led it like 14-10, but Jamarcus Russell and the Tigers' superior athleticism and speed took over in the second half, 41-14 Tigers. The last scheduled game between Notre Dame and an SEC opponent was in 2005 against a pretty good Vols team that went to South Bend, and Notre Dame won that one. And Notre Dame historically has had exceptional success against the SEC, and we're talking historically up until into the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s with those excellent Notre Dame teams. But recently, those two games against Alabama and against LSU in the bowl games, let's do the math here, 83-28, LSU and Alabama over Notre Dame. These teams have only played once. It was historic. Herschel Walker, Georgia, undefeated, taking on the Irish, who had two losses. 1981 Sugar Bowl, and Georgia won its only national championship with a hard-fought 17-10 win over Notre Dame at the Superdome. It's interesting to note that Notre Dame has established rivalries across the country with the other Power Four conferences. They have the agreement with the ACC, which I just can't imagine that the ACC would agree to that. But it's the money. The money played a huge role in this, of course, and the cachet of scheduling Notre Dame. But they're not a member of the ACC, but they've obligated themselves, Notre Dame, to play 4 ACC opponents per year. Of course, their biggest rival, arguably, is USC, so they've got a connection to the Pac-12, and in recent years have played Stanford. Notre Dame against the Big 12, against Oklahoma. They've had a home-and-home in recent years, 2012, 2013. They've scheduled 4 games against Texas upcoming. Now, there's some speculation that this series and agreement with Georgia will negate 2 of those games, but Notre Dame says that they're committed to fulfilling 4 games and that commitment with Texas. And Notre Dame probably has its biggest ties with the Big Ten traditionally, with Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue always on the schedule, but that will not be the case with the ACC agreement taking hold this season and going beyond, although Notre Dame has committed to playing some games and continuing that series again with Purdue, Michigan, and Michigan State. But as for the SEC, Notre Dame with no ties there. They want to recruit the South. They need to recruit the South, even though Notre Dame can go to California and Texas. They need the South, and so they need a series like this, as well does Georgia. So Georgia, Notre Dame, whether you're on the Bulldogs side or the Irish side, you've got to be excited, or just a college football fan that wants to see these kind of big-time games. 2017, 2019, Notre Dame and Georgia. Would love to hear what you have to say right here on Mark Rogers TV.